A black belt fighter thought it would be funny to challenge a black woman in front of everyone at the gym. He expected an easy win, but what happened next left the entire place frozen in silence. You won't believe how she turned the tables. The gym was loud that afternoon with the sound of heavy bags shaking with every strike, the sound of students sparring, and the sharp instructions of the coach guiding each fighter to push harder than before. This was not just any gym, it was a respected martial arts academy known for training champions and sharpening both body and mind. The walls were decorated with posters of past tournaments, the mats were worn but firm from years of practice, and the atmosphere was heavy with the scent of sweat, dedication, and discipline. Among the students stood Marcus, a man known for his flashy style and overconfident attitude. He wore his black belt proudly around his waist and often reminded others of his victories. He liked to joke, he liked to show off, and sometimes he even liked to test newcomers by challenging them in front of the class. His intentions were not always cruel, but they often came with arrogance that rubbed others the wrong way. On this day, he was in rare form, full of energy and eager to prove once again that he was the best in the room. Into this setting walked a new face. Her name was Aaliyah. She carried herself with quiet confidence, her eyes sharp, her movements smooth. She wore a simple training outfit without any sign of rank, and for most in the room, she seemed like just another beginner coming to learn the art. She spoke little, only introducing herself politely and listening carefully to the coach. She moved to the side to stretch her muscles, preparing for what was supposed to be her first class, but Marcus noticed her immediately, and his ego stirred at the sight of someone new. He grinned as he approached, and the other students watched with curiosity. Marcus enjoyed being the center of attention, and whenever a fresh face entered the gym, he felt it was his duty to make a scene. He walked up to Aaliyah with an exaggerated bow, holding his belt as if to remind her and everyone else that he was a black belt, and said in a mocking tone, "So are you ready to fight me today?" The words hung in the air like a challenge, though most thought it was just a joke, a test to see how she would react. Aaliyah looked at him calmly, without flinching. Her voice was soft but steady. She said, "If that is what you want, I will fight you." There was no hint of fear, no nervous laughter, only simple acceptance. Her response caught Marcus off guard, and even the coach raised an eyebrow. The room grew quiet as the students realized this was about to turn into something much more than a joke. What started as playful arrogance was now becoming a test of pride and strength. Marcus laughed loudly, trying to brush off the tension. He told the group not to worry, that he would go easy on her, that it would be over quickly. He stretched his arms, cracked his knuckles, and stepped onto the mat, ready to show everyone why he was a black belt. The students gathered in a circle, their eyes wide with anticipation. The coach did not stop them, perhaps curious himself to see what this newcomer was capable of. Aaliyah stepped forward, bowed respectfully, and took her stance. Her posture was balanced, strong, and precise, far from the clumsy stance of a beginner. The match began, and in that instant the air shifted. The confidence that Marcus wore like armor began to waver as Aaliyah moved her feet, lightly circling him with focus, her eyes never leaving his body, her hands raised in flawless guard. Marcus threw the first strike, a quick jab meant to test her reflexes, but she slipped it effortlessly, tilting her head just enough for the fist to miss by inches. The crowd gasped, not because she dodged, but because she did it with such ease, as though she had done it 1,000 times before. Marcus smirked and threw another strike, faster this time, a hook aimed at her ribs. Aaliyah blocked with sharp precision, her arm firm, her stance unmoved, and before Marcus could reset, she countered with a light strike that tapped his chest, not strong enough to hurt, but powerful enough to make a point. The message was clear. She was not playing around. The crowd began to murmur, and Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks. He tried again, this time with a low kick, hoping to catch her legs off balance, but she checked the kick with flawless timing, then stepped in and swept his supporting leg in a smooth motion. Marcus stumbled, nearly falling to the mat, but caught himself just in time. The laughter he expected from the crowd never came. Instead, there was silence, broken only by the sound of their breathing. Everyone was watching closely. The black belt, who always boasted about his skills, was being tested in ways he had not imagined. Marcus felt the weight of the room pressing on him as he tried to steady himself, his pride demanding that he recover quickly. He raised his guard again and forced a smile, pretending he was still in control. He lunged forward with a flurry of strikes, punches aimed at her head and body. His speed was impressive, his black belt training clear in every movement. But Aaliyah moved like water, slipping around each strike, her body turning just enough, her feet sliding across the mat like she had been born to fight. The crowd of students leaned in, their eyes wide. Every miss from Marcus added fuel to their amazement. Every dodge from Aaliyah told them she was not what she appeared to be. Whispers spread through the gym, some wondering if she had hidden training, some whispering that she might actually be better than him. Even the coach leaned forward, his usually calm expression giving way to curiosity as he studied every detail of her technique. Finally, Marcus thought he saw an opening. He swung a heavy roundhouse kick with all his strength, aiming for her ribs, the kind of kick that would drop most fighters to the ground. But Aaliyah anticipated it with perfect timing. She stepped inside his strike, closing the distance before the kick could reach full power, and with a swift motion, she hooked his leg, lifted it off the mat, and spun him off balance. Marcus crashed onto the floor, the sound echoing across the gym like thunder. Gasps filled the air as the black belt lay on the ground, his pride cracked more than his body. Aaliyah did not gloat. She simply stepped back, her stance still firm, her breathing calm, as if she had not even broken a sweat. Marcus scrambled up, his face red, his confidence shaken, but his ego refused to let him stop. He shouted that it was just luck that he had slipped, that he would end it this time. They squared off again, Marcus charging with desperate aggression, throwing punch after punch. But Aaliyah parried each one, her eyes never losing focus, her movements sharp and deliberate. Then, with a quick shift, she struck his arm, disarming his attack, and followed with a clean strike to his shoulder. Marcus staggered backward, pain flashing across his face. The students watched in silence, their respect for her growing with every second. Aaliyah spoke for the first time during the fight, her voice calm and controlled. She said, "You should never underestimate someone. Because of how they look, you should never mock a person who has come to learn. You do not know what they carry inside." Those words cut deeper than any strike, and the gym fell even quieter, as if every student felt the truth sink into their bones. Marcus breathed heavily, his energy draining, his pride hanging by a thread. He launched one last desperate attack, a spinning kick aimed at her head, but Aaliyah ducked smoothly, stepped in, and swept his legs clean. This time, he hit the mat hard, his body sprawling across it, the sound louder than before. His black belt status meant nothing in that moment, as the crowd stared in stunned silence. The coach finally stepped forward, raising his hand to stop the match, his voice steady but firm. He said, "That is enough, Marcus. You challenged her as a joke, but she has shown what true discipline looks like." He turned to Aaliyah, his eyes filled with admiration, and said, "Welcome to the gym. You have our respect from this day." The students erupted in cheers and claps, their voices echoing through the space. They rushed toward her, some asking where she had trained, others simply thanking her for teaching them a lesson without even intending to. Marcus sat on the mat, breathing heavily, his pride wounded, but deep down he knew he had been humbled in a way he could not ignore. Aaliyah bowed respectfully to the coach, then to the students. She did not smile or boast. She simply walked off the mat, her steps calm, her presence powerful, leaving behind an unforgettable silence in the hearts of everyone who had witnessed the match. The black belt had tried to use her as a joke, but instead she had shown everyone the true meaning of strength and humility. The gym remained alive with whispers long after the fight ended, students gathering in small groups, replaying every move. She had made, her speed, her precision, her calmness. It was something many of them had never seen before. They spoke about how she moved with the discipline of a master, yet carried the humility of a true warrior. Some even said she fought better than the instructors they had trained under for years. Marcus sat quietly in the corner, his black belt now feeling heavier than ever around his waist. His breathing had slowed, but his mind raced, replaying each moment of the match. He thought of every strike he had thrown, every dodge she had executed, and every counter that left him vulnerable. Pride had always been his weapon, but today it had turned into his weakness. He wanted to be angry, yet deep down he knew the truth: he had been defeated, not by luck, but by skill far greater than his own. The coach called everyone together, forming a circle on the mat. He wanted to address the lesson that had unfolded before their eyes. He said, "What you all witnessed today is the essence of martial arts. It is not about belts or titles. It is not about who can brag the loudest. It is about discipline, respect, and the ability to adapt." Aaliyah came here as a new student, yet she carried the spirit of a warrior that many of you have not yet understood. He turned to Aaliyah and asked her to speak to the group. At first, she hesitated. She was not one to seek attention, but the eyes of every student were fixed on her, waiting for her words. She finally spoke, her tone steady but humble. She said, "I learned long ago that martial arts is not only about fighting, it is about knowing yourself, controlling your heart, and respecting others. Too many people think it is about showing strength, but true strength is quiet. True strength is patient, and true strength never underestimates anyone." The room was still, her words sinking deeply into each listener. Some nodded, others looked down, reflecting on their own behavior. Marcus felt the sting of every word because he realized she was speaking directly to the pride that had guided his every move. He had mocked her, he had underestimated her, and he had tried to use her as a joke. And yet she had taught him the most important lesson of his life, without anger, without cruelty, just with skill and wisdom. After the talk, the coach announced that Aaliyah would train with the advanced group. Despite being new, he said her level of mastery deserved nothing less. The students cheered again, many eager to spar with her, not to defeat her, but to learn from her. Marcus remained quiet, but when the crowd dispersed, he slowly stood and walked toward her. The gym grew silent again, waiting to see what he would do. His pride was bruised, but he could not walk away without saying something. He bowed slightly, his voice lower than usual. He said, "I was wrong today. I let my pride control me, and I disrespected you. Thank you for teaching me a lesson I should have learned long ago." Aaliyah simply nodded, her face calm, her eyes kind. She said, "Respect is the first step." Marcus bowed again and stepped back, his ego no longer shouting, his heart feeling lighter, though it still carried the weight of humility. From that day forward, the gym felt different. The students carried themselves with greater respect. The arrogance that often clouded the air had been replaced by curiosity and discipline. They wanted to train harder, not to boast, but to grow. Aaliyah became a quiet inspiration, her presence reminding them that skill and humility could exist together. She did not seek attention, but her reputation grew quickly. Within weeks, she was the student others looked to for guidance, her calm corrections, her patient explanations, turning her into a mentor despite her short time there. The coach often smiled watching her train. He had seen many fighters come and go, some chasing fame, others chasing belts, but rarely had he seen someone who embodied the essence of the art so fully. He knew she would go far, and he was proud to have her under his roof. As for Marcus, his journey changed entirely from that day. He no longer laughed at new students. He no longer bragged about his belt. He trained harder with a quieter mind, sometimes sparring with Aaliyah, not to prove himself, but to learn. Her lessons were sharp, her counters precise, and with each exchange, he grew more disciplined. He began to understand what the belt truly meant, and the respect he gained from others came not from boasting, but from humility. The day that had begun as a joke had transformed the entire gym. It was no longer about who could strike harder or faster, but about who could listen, who could grow, and who could carry themselves with respect. Weeks turned into months, and the story of that day spread beyond the walls of the gym. Visitors from other dojos and academies came to train, and many had already heard whispers about the woman who silenced a black belt with skill and composure. Some arrived, doubtful, thinking the tale was exaggerated. Others came eager to see her for themselves. Every time they trained with her, they left with the same impression. She was more than a fighter, she was a teacher, even when she never claimed the title. Aaliyah continued her training with dedication, arriving early and leaving late. She would often practice in silence, her focus absolute, her movements sharp and graceful. Students would pause their own drills just to watch her flow through combinations. The way she balanced strength with control was mesmerizing. She never wasted energy, never moved without purpose. Every strike carried precision. Every defense held timing so perfect that it felt as though she could read her opponent before they even acted. The coach sometimes paired her with visiting black belts, and each time the room filled with anticipation. The matches were never full of anger, never reckless, just pure demonstrations of skill and patience. She never fought to humiliate, but she always made her point clear. She stood as proof that true martial arts was not about color of belt or loud declarations, but about discipline that lived inside the heart and mind. Marcus became her most consistent training partner, and though his pride had once driven him to arrogance, now it pushed him toward growth. He absorbed her lessons, sometimes being thrown to the mat again and again, but never with shame. He would rise, bow, and try again. His respect for her became genuine, and his fellow students noticed the transformation in him, they no longer whispered about his arrogance. Instead, they spoke about how he had changed, how he had begun to inspire them in a new way through humility and effort. The gym flourished under this new spirit. Competitions came, and the team performed stronger than ever. Many credited Aaliyah for bringing balance and inspiration to their training. Her example pushed them to fight smarter, to respect their opponents, and to carry themselves with honor. When they entered the ring, she never claimed credit, but the impact was undeniable. One day after class, the coach called Aaliyah into his office. The walls were lined with trophies and photos of champions, but he looked at her with a seriousness reserved only for moments of importance. He said, "Aaliyah, I have been teaching for many years, and I can say with confidence that you are one of the finest martial artists I have ever seen. Your skill is remarkable, but what sets you apart is your humility and your discipline. I want you to consider leading classes here, not just as a student, but as a teacher." Aaliyah listened quietly, her hands folded in front of her. She had never sought such recognition. She had come simply to train, but she also understood that martial arts was not meant to be kept only for oneself. It was meant to be shared. She bowed her head and said, "If you believe I am ready, then I will do it." The coach smiled deeply and shook her hand, knowing that the decision would strengthen the academy even further. When the announcement was made to the students, the room erupted in cheers. They had already seen her as a mentor, but now it was official. She began leading beginner classes, teaching the fundamentals with the same patience and precision that defined her. Fighting the new students adored her not because she was strict, but because she respected them. She treated even the clumsiest beginner with the same care as a seasoned fighter. She never mocked, never dismissed, and always reminded them that strength began with respect. Marcus had changed the most. He was no longer the arrogant black belt who mocked others. He became one of the most disciplined students in the gym and often stayed behind after class to help new fighters with drills. He gave credit to Aaliyah, openly telling everyone that she had shown him the difference between pride and strength. Many students who once rolled their eyes at his boasting now respected him for his humility and perseverance. The gym had watched him transform, and his journey inspired them as much as her victories did. One evening, the gym was packed with students practicing hard for an upcoming regional tournament. The coach gathered them together and announced that Aaliyah would be leading the team as captain. The room filled with cheers and applause. She bowed humbly and accepted, though she reminded them that being captain did not mean she was above them. It only meant she carried a responsibility to guide and support them. Her words carried weight, and every student felt proud to be under her leadership. At the tournament, their academy performed with remarkable discipline. Fighters entered the ring with calm focus and left with dignity, whether they won or lost. Aaliyah fought with precision and grace, defeating opponents with flawless timing and control. Yet each time, she bowed respectfully, never showing arrogance. The crowd cheered loudly for her, but she always pointed back to her team, acknowledging that she was only one part of something greater. When the final match ended and their academy had taken the top prize, the coach stood proudly at the center, holding the trophy. He announced that this victory was not about medals or recognition. It was about the spirit that had grown inside the gym, the spirit that Aaliyah had ignited from the moment she stepped onto the mat. Everyone applauded, tears in some eyes, as they realized the truth behind his words. The story of the black belt who challenged a new woman as a joke had now become legendary across the martial arts community. People spoke about how she had silenced the gym, not with anger or arrogance, but with pure skill and humility. Her actions had reshaped not only one fighter, but an entire academy. The ripple of that day continued to spread, touching everyone who came to learn under her guidance. As the sun set outside the tournament hall, Aaliyah stood with her teammates, holding the trophy, not for herself, but for all of them. She looked around at the smiling faces and thought back to that very first day when Marcus had stepped forward with pride and issued his careless challenge. She remembered the silence that followed her victory, and she knew that silence had been more powerful than any cheer, because in that silence, every heart had been changed. She closed her eyes for a moment, breathing deeply, feeling the peace within her. She knew the journey was far from over, but she also knew that she was ready for whatever lay ahead. She had found her place not only as a fighter, but as a guide, And as the captain of her academy, she carried forward the lesson that had defined her life. True strength is quiet, true strength is patient, and true strength always respects others. And so the legend of the woman who silenced the gym lived on a reminder that one moment of humility and courage can echo forever.